Hello everyone, welcome to Module 5 and to our next major project, which is going to be an unsolicited letter of proposal. And so Module 5 and Module 6, we're going to be focusing on this project. And so today in this video, I'm going to open it up, open the instructions up, and walk through them. We're going to talk about the learning materials and the submissions and activities for this week. But first of all, I'm going to look at that project. And so let me make this bigger. So proposals are a type of writing that you will come across quite often in your professional life, in your career, whether you are addressing a need, a problem, or just sharing an idea with other people. Being able to put your ideas, name your ideas, put them into words, and then put them into writing in a way that a reader can fully understand and appreciate and buy into and be persuaded by is a skill that takes practice, but it is important as it will get your name and your values and your projects out there. And so many proposals are kind of focused on larger issues, larger things. And when you have a big project, when a company has a big project or a big need, they will send out calls for proposals. And these proposals include big plans like creating new buildings or creating new construction, redesigning, a mission statement, values, being able to change up a whole, design. Those take a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of planning. They involve, committees. They often involve legislation and zoning and all of those kind of things. Those are important, obviously, but also just as important and also a whole lot more common are the smaller scale proposals. If you're an employer, if you're somebody and you are looking at a situation and you see a need firsthand, something small, something that will not take committees, will not take big moves, but something that you can share with an individual, with the authority who can enact your ideas, that is really common, and that's what we're going to be focusing on here. And so if we get down here to the actual assignment, this is going to be a proposal, a letter of proposal, where you will be writing to an employer or to ASU. And this is going to be unsolicited. That means that it hasn't been requested, it hasn't been assigned to you, and it is going to be unexpected for the recipient of your letter. They are not going to be expecting, they are not going to know what you are talking about. And so that places the burden of clarity, the burden of argument, the burden of information on your shoulders as the writer to be able to convey to this reader your ideas and your plan. Keep in mind that a proposal, a letter of proposal, is very different than a letter of suggestion. Okay, you're not simply going to say, hey, I've got some great ideas. We can do this, or we can do this, or we can do this. That is not a proposal. A proposal is looking at a specific need, naming that need, convincing a person with authority to, enact your proposal, convincing them of that need and providing with them a specific logistical plan on how to enact your answer to this need, whether that is some kind of fix, some kind of improvement, some kind of event. Okay, so here's an example here of, maybe you've noticed that students taking online ASU classes need more networking opportunities. Okay, and so that is something where you are going to find and do a little detective work on who is the person who has the authority to enact this proposed plan. All right, so you're going to be writing to one person, and again, that has an influence on the type of ideas you can present. So remember that your idea needs to be able to be enacted by one person or one small committee. And so in this proposal, you're going to need to convince them of that need. You're going to support that argument, because you're making an argument here, that need exists with reasons and with evidence. And you're going to convince that director that it will benefit, your plans will benefit students and you're going to provide the details like the schedule, the logistics, the whens, wheres, and hows, so that they know exactly what your plan is. And so, first step we need to do is think about, well, first of all, come up with that need, something that we have seen, but then we need to identify the best audience, and that'll take a minute, okay? So you're not going to write to the CEO of a business. You're not going to write to President Crow about something like, lighting in this section of campus, because they delegate that stuff. A proposal sent to them at that level will not go anywhere. So you need to find who is the person who has the power and the authority to enact your proposal. And keep your proposal small and keep it simple. The more complex or the bigger your idea is doesn't mean that it's going to be better. Keep it small and manageable. And so you're going to then present evidence. You're going to bring in 1 or 2 outside credible sources that help convince your reader that there is this need and that some kind of event or action is going to benefit. All right. And then the next step is just plan out or establish the plan. What are the logistics? What's the timeline? What needs to be done? Who's going to do this? Who's going to organize this? Who's going to manage this? When, where, how will it be enacted? All right. And so here it just kind of breaks that down. The kind of introduction you will need, the kind of persuasion that's going to be taking place, the logistical details that you need to provide, and all of that. And then just the logistics of this project, and also the formatting. Be sure that you follow the formatting, because a proposal or a letter, or really anything in the professional world that is not formatted correctly or what is expected, will usually get set aside. Okay? Read that over. Please reach out to me if you have any questions on this assignment. Right here, we've got 3 student examples, but keep in mind that 2 out of 3 of these have been written for different situations than to ASU or to an employer. Different situations than our specific assignment, so keep that in mind. However, even though they're a little bit different, they still show the patterns of proposals, the patterns of using evidence to convince your reader of the need, of laying out the plan, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, as far as learning materials this week, there's some important reading, okay? This acronym AIDA stands for, attention, interest, desire, and action. It's a plan of persuasion. How do you persuade people? And it's kind of a model. And so read that over, because that's going to come into play in our assignments. And read over both of these. And you can skim. They're not very long. Watch these videos. They're not long either, and they are helpful. They really are, because then we are going to get into our first discussion, which is all about the AIDA model. Like our project or assignment last week, we are going to take a section or a passage from the textbook. We are going to analyze and revise that section according to the AIDA model. And then we are going to respond to at least 2 students' posts discussing what aspects of their analysis and revisions gave you a new perspective of the message. That is important. Don't just simply respond by, hey, great ideas, and be done with it. Okay, make sure to read the assignment and follow that assignment. The next thing that we have here is the quiz. And then the last thing we're going to be doing this week doesn't have to do with this project, but is looking ahead at project 4. I want an update on your progress. I want to know who you have reached out to, whether you've received that response or not, just to compel you to stay on top of this. So read this over. Let me know what's going on, where you are, if you've received that response, and how you're doing. Okay? Understand that networking often takes time, and it's awkward, but it often takes time. You might have to reach out to 6, 8 people before you get a response. If you haven't received a response from somebody within a week, don't keep hammering them. Move on to somebody else. Okay? So just read over those instructions and let me know where you are so I can help and I can give you some feedback. Have a great week, y'all.